Hello again, this is John Burroughs, and I'm going to continue with chapter 67 of my autobiography, 7 Years to Life. Chapter 67 is called Raquel, Welch, and Brooke Shields. I know that you're probably thinking right now, if this guy even remotely insinuates that he had relationships with Raquel Welch and Brooke Shields, that it would be a bunch of bullshit. Your assumption would be correct. However, there is a good reason why I use this title for the story. I may have been over this before, but in the event that I am mistaken, for the purposes of this story, the concept of a public telephone and semi-public telephone needs to be rehashed. Excuse me. A public phone is one that typically involves a space use agreement between Pacific Bell and the customer. In essence, the agreement allows Pacific Bell to use a certain amount of the customer's space in order to place public telephone or telephones there. The account executive is responsible for predicting as close as possible the number of phones that a location could have and still maintain an acceptable profit. If the customer agreed, then typically a 3-year space use agreement would be consummated, and the customer would receive an agreed upon percentage for the gross revenue for allowing Pacific Bell to use the customer's space. The customer was not responsible for any maintenance or damage to the phones. This was before cell phones, and public telephone space use agreements turned out to be a mutually beneficial situation. The semi-public telephone was an entirely different proposition. Agreements were not signed for semi-public phones. Typically, the reasons that Pacific Bell would not place a public telephone and pay commissions on the revenue is that the revenue that the phone generated varied. One, the public did not have 24-hour access to the phone. In some cases, where there was 24 access, the location was so remote that it was obviously that the phone would not generate a tolerable revenue. The majority of the time, a semi-public phone was installed when a customer would request one in order to keep customers or employees off the business lines. Having a semi-public phone was worth it because it reduced the customer's business phone bill enough so having one made it worth the expense associated with the semi-public phone. There were always exceptions to the rules. For instance, a very busy restaurant often had public phones because they were highly profitable phones. The fact of the matter that if the phone was profitable, it did not matter where it was located. The account executive had the decision-making authority to determine what the phone's classification would be. The main differences were if a public phone was allowed inside a building, it had to be accessible to everybody while the establishment was open. Additionally, the phone had to meet all the federal and state requirements, such as the American with Disabilities Act. In the case of a semi-public phone requested by the customer to be installed in areas not open to the public, like factories or buildings of that nature, the customer could choose the location of the phone. Semi-public phones were often installed in peculiar places and at strange heights. The semi-public customer had to pay $235 to have the phone installed, a recurring monthly charge of $35, and since there was not a contract in these cases, the company could remove the phone any time they wished. The same right went to the customer. Okay, that is out of the way, but as you read on, you will understand the necessity of knowing the above-mentioned information. I reported to work one morning, and my workload consisted of orders for 2 semi-public payphones to be installed at BJ's Photography on El Camino Real in San Mateo, California. BJ's was right down the block from Santini's restaurant that was known all over the county for their amazing pizza. Parking for customers generally was only available curbside along El Camino Real. There was a back alley providing service and supply trucks rear access to the various businesses. I knew BJ's Photography was relatively new because up until about 3 months ago the space was vacant. El Camino Real was the main drag traveled by old and young alike, and it went on for miles. For this reason, any new establishment was almost immediately noticed. I entered the rear of BJ's, and as I was walking toward the front lobby, I passed a bathroom. The door was ajar and I could see it also contained a shower stall. After that I passed another room with the door barely open. I was not 30 seconds past that door when I heard a female voice question, "Are you the phone guy?" "That would be me," I answered. She said, "There is nobody up front and the phones are to be installed in this room." Um, they, uh, they had a business line in the room that was due to be disconnected the following day because 4 employees, 2 that worked the day shift and 2 that worked the swing shift, were constantly using it and running up the owner's phone bill. As I perused the room and its contents, it was obviously an illegal massage parlor. There were 2 mattresses on the floor that had sheets, pillows, and blankets, and they were surprisingly clean. One mattress was placed against one wall, and the other mattress placed against the opposite wall. There was not a massage table in the room. I asked this girl where she wanted the phones, and she wanted one phone placed on each wall that the mattresses were up against, and low enough on the wall where they could be used when in reclined position. Lying on her back on one of the mattresses was another girl that was sleeping. She had a half-finished box of lo mein resting on her stomach. She was snoring and breathing heavily, immersed in a deep sleep. Every time she exhaled, drops of sprittle would spray into the air, along with a couple of lo mein noodles that were lodged between her teeth, and her breathing could not extricate them. She had a pot belly and looked hideous. I am a man with some degree of compassion, so I will leave out the part about the odor that was emanating from her body. Nonetheless, I called dispatch and requested another technician's help. I said I needed help for about an hour in order to run some wire. It was a lie, but I knew whatever technician in my crew was closest to my location would thoroughly enjoy writing about this in their phone company memoirs. I was told they would send Mike M., and out of all the technicians in the crew, he was the one that would derive the most fun out of this for many reasons, but the absurdity of it challenged you to believe it. I returned to the room where the phones were going, and as I began to install the phones, the business line rang. The girl that was coherent answered the phone. Though I could only hear what she was saying, I could accurately guess what the caller was saying. My client was telling the caller that she was a Raquel Welch look-alike, and her partner was a Brooke Shields look-alike. It just so happened that the Raquel look-alike was quite attractive. She had long brown hair that was complemented by a long lean body and piercing blue eyes. She was an enigma. After she got off the phone, I guess she felt guilty having another man hearing her give the pitch because she started a conversation with me and she articulated her reasons for doing so-called massages that told you she was intelligent and educated. She was a single mother of 3 young ones, and this job offered the earning potential to take care of her young ones comfortably and easily save enough money in 2 years to go back to college, earn a music degree, and still have enough left over to keep the lifestyle that provided for her children. Unfortunately, the business of sex is so alluring to young girls because it gives them the opportunity to live a much better life in the future. However, most young ladies that get involved in this business do not have Raquel's intelligence and 3 children that they love, which provides the strength to get out. Most of the naive young ladies think that this will be their way out. However, they usually end up junkies, enslaved, or dead. I told her that she did not have to make excuses to me. I am the last one to judge anybody, and that I hope she understood that what I got from our conversation was that she was a brave young woman, and come hell or high water, she will fulfill her goals. I then said to her that I sincerely hope that the caller she spoke to was partial to a Raquel Welch look-alike, because if Brooke Shields snoring away over there is what he desired, then to me that is just cruel and unusual punishment. Mike arrived shortly after our conversation, and when he saw Raquel, he was smitten with her. We completed the phones, and as I was getting in my van, Mike told me he was going to stick around a while. He did get her phone number, and being single at the time, he called her and asked her out. She said the time was not right for her to be dating. It was about 18 months later, while driving south on El Camino Real, I noticed BJ's was gone. I prefer to believe that Raquel achieved her goals. This event that took place in my life made me take the saying, never judge a book by its cover. I know many people judge me in that way, and they were wrong.